Hi, my name is Korame. I've been making Preservation Evoker ever since it came out, and I just completed Dimensius last week, and so now, a little bit late, I'm coming out with my Preservation Evoker guide. This is going to be a kind of quick guide. It's going to assume that you have some working knowledge of Preservation Evoker. If you have no knowledge of it and you're completely new, I do have a much longer, new-friendly guide linked below, but this one's going to be a lot quicker. Okay, first up, looking at talents. So they have changed some of our core talents a little bit. So Stasis has been moved up to where you used to get the CDR on side of Rewind, and now you just always take Stasis, obviously. Where Stasis used to be, it's now replaced with this new talent called Tempo Charge. It's just like our Season 1 tier set. So basically, between every single Empower spell, you're going to make sure that you have 4 Temporal Compression stacks, and that's going to synergize well with Temporal Burst and Exhilarating Burst. So it doesn't really change that much. Also now, baseline have 2 charges of reversion, so you no longer have to take that talent, and where that talent used to be is now a talent called Unshakable. It just gives you a flat increase to your Empower spells, and also prevents knockbacks, which at first glance on this rate seems really useful, but it's actually not that useful, but it probably will be in the future. As far as hero talents go, it's still Flame Shaper. I'm only going to be talking about Flame Shaper inside of this, and there have been a few changes that happened last year that do affect how you play this tier. First off, in case you didn't know, Engulf is now hasted, which means haste is going to be a really important stat, which I'm going to talk about later with the gameplay section. On top of that, whenever you engulf, this gives CDR to your Dream Breath, and also your engulf now actually consumes Dream Breath without extending the duration. All these were changes last season, but I'm mentioning them in case you didn't play Preservation Evoker last season because it sucked. Now that I've talked about the changes, I'm going to talk more about the gameplay and our new tier set and how that changes our gameplay a lot this season. I'm going to start big, and then I'll get down into the nitty-gritty of stats and stasis and all that kind of stuff. Previously, Consume the Flame and Engulf healing dominated all of your healing. It was the majority of your healing. That's still true. It does a large portion of your healing, but also going hand in hand with that now is the healing from our new tier set, and it shows up as Essence Bomb on the logs. Played correctly, it can even do your top healing over Consume the Flame. How this works is every single time you cast an Engulf, and no, the Engulfs in your stasis do not count, it's the ones that you yourself actually cast, you get a buff called Inner Flame. During this window, you're going to have increased hot healing, increased chance to generate Essence Burst, and every single time you consume an Essence Burst, you're going to do Essence Bomb healing. How you're going to capitalize on this Inner Flame window to farm as many Essence Bombs as possible is basically going through a back and forth of casting Echoes to consume those Essence Bursts, and then casting Reversion to generate more Essence Bursts to then spend. So something like this is going to be kind of like the average Inner Flame window, though it kind of changes just depending on what you have available and what you put in your stasis. Average experience of how this would go is you press your Dream Breath, and then you press your Engulf, and because you press your Dream Breath, you're going to automatically get an Essence Burst because you're going to do it with your 4 tempo stacks before you do it, and most likely you're going to go into it already having 1 Essence Burst available. So you're going to press your Dream Breath, your Engulf, and you're immediately going to send out 2 Essence Bombs by putting out 2 Echoes. Then you're going to consume those 2 Echoes with a Reversion, and that might generate another Essence Burst for you, or it might not. Most likely it will, so you can put out another Echo, and then you might put out a TA, and then you're going to consume those again with another Reversion, and then you're going to consume them with the Reversion, and then because you have 4 stacks of Tempo Charge again, you can go ahead and press a Fire Breath, or even a Spirit Bloom, but usually not Spirit Bloom because you don't want to sit there and charge inside your Inner Flame window like ever. So usually it's going to be a Fire Breath, like a rank 1 Fire Breath, and it's going to give you another guaranteed Essence Burst right at the end. Again, that is just like an average experience. That's not how it's always going to go. It's going to depend on what you have available and what's going on at the time. So that is one portion of your Inner Flame window. It is the most important portion. The other portion of it, though, is that it also does increase your hot healing. So if you do an Engulf, Consume the Flame healing, while you have your Inner Flame window up, it is going to do more healing because your Dream Breath is ticking faster. So if you were healing in a bubble where basically all healing was good healing, you'd almost always want to set up your stasis and detonate your stasis during your Inner Flame window, because then it's going to do the most healing because you have that Inner Flame buff when you do it. Now obviously this isn't realistic because that's just not how healing works. You don't always need that extra healing, and also you don't always need to detonate your stasis inside the Inner Flame window because you're generating Essence Bombs, so you already have a way to do good healing still in that window, but there are still times when you will do it. It just kind of depends on the fight and the timings of the fight. One of the bigger consequences of this is that it will change what you put on your stasis depending on when you want to detonate your stasis. Let me explain. So there's basically 2 generic stasises you can do. You can do one where you do a Dream Breath followed by a double Engulf, or you can do one where you Dream Breath before outside of the stasis, and then you do double Engulf followed by a TA. So in general, if you are going to be detonating your stasis during your Inner Flame window, so you're going to set up your stasis, and within 12 seconds you're going to detonate it again, Editor core here, I should have said within 5 seconds, because what happens is when you set up that Dream Breath and you double engulf it, you're taking 4 seconds off the Dream Breath double engulfing, then you're casting TA, which is letting it tick down, and you need to make sure when you detonate the stasis that there's at least 4 seconds left on your Dream Breath for you to engulf. To simplify this, there's going to be 3 basic scenarios. Scenario 1 is you are detonating your stasis within your inner flame window, which means you don't put Dream Breath in your stasis. Scenario 2 is you are detonating your stasis before Dream Breath comes off CD again. So let's say you're setting it up and you want to detonate it again, roughly within 14 seconds of setting it up, then you want to make sure that you have a Dream Breath inside your stasis because it's not going to be back up. And scenario 3 is you are detonating your stasis anytime after that. So your Dream Breath is available if you need it, but also maybe you don't want to do it there, and in that case, either stasis is fine. Now, the scenario 3 obviously lends the question of, okay, but which one is better? Which one is going to do more healing? And that answer is not super straightforward. So to give you an example and to kind of ease your anxiety over it, Nick from Liquid almost never puts Dream Breath inside of stasis. Sometimes he does when he needs to, depending on when he's detonating it, but whenever he doesn't have to do it, he doesn't put Dream Breath in his stasis. Whereas if you look at someone like Bello from Echo, he almost always puts Dream Breath in stasis. Now, these are 2 really good race roll first healers in the top guild, and they're doing different things. So the basic thing you should get from this answer is it really doesn't matter that much, and don't stress about it. In general, especially if you're newer and you want to make the least amount of mistakes, I would usually suggest you do the Velo strategy where you put Dream Breath inside of your stasis so you don't have to remember to do a Dream Breath and have it ticking in time for you to detonate your stasis. Okay, now that we've talked about that can of worms, let's move on to the next can of worms, which is how much haste should you run? Baseline, if you want to be able to get 2 engulf casts between every single stasis, which means you double engulf in stasis, and then you get 1 more engulf and 1 more engulf cast, and then when your next stasis comes off CD, a minute and a half later, you have 2 more charges back, you need 15% haste minimum. Now, that 15% haste is good if you are pressing your engulfs right when they come off CD and you're playing really, really well. However, that is not really the haste that I saw most evokers running in the Risk World first. Most of them were hovering somewhere around 15,000 haste, so that was usually somewhere where I was around. Honestly, I was changing my haste around depending on the timings of the fight. Like I had a little bit more on with the King Saladar compared to Demencius, and I saw other evokers doing something similar as well. It's kind of a comfort thing. Haste is your second best stat. You still want to make sure you're stacking mastery as much as you can first, because mastery is still going to be king, but haste is a lot better than it used to be. Basically, you want to get to a point that you feel comfortable with it and it's easy for you to engulf cast, and you may find on certain fights, in order to fit certain timings, you need to equip a little bit more, or you may find that the timings are really easy and so you can try and reel back that haste a tiny bit if you're not getting that much out of it, but I wouldn't stress about it. Again, Evoker is a really strong and powerful class, and something like a little bit of stat isn't going to make a big difference. You're going to do big healing as long as you play the class well. Okay, now let's talk about CDs outside of your stasis and engulf. So CDs that used to matter a lot on Evoker now matter quite a bit less, because you're spending so much time in your engulf and inner flame windows and trying to maximize that you'd want to spend less time worrying about the other ones. A big example of this is your Emerald Communion. Emerald Communion used to be a big thing where you would put out a bunch of echoes, do your lifeline, and do big EC healing. That didn't happen on almost any of the fights this year. The only fight where it felt like it was pretty good, I think, was on Demencius for the end, or the gate in P1, and then the end of the P2 platform when everybody is getting knocked off. Outside of that, many evokers just do like a really small like EC like ramp, I mean like 5 echoes or something, compared to what they used to do before, and it kind of just takes a backseat because you're spending most of your time and most of your echoes and things like that doing engulfs and essence bomb healing, because it's just so much better. When it comes to rewind, especially on the earlier bosses, there is a lot of heal absorb mechanics, so make sure that you're saving it for times when you are actually taking damage. And most of the time you're only gonna get 2 uses now. Before, you can maybe fit 3 in on some fights because it was a 3-minute CD because we take that talent, but now that we no longer take that talent and we take stasis, you're almost always only going to get 2 uses on every single fight. Dream Fight is still a fine source of healing. You just press it when it's safe to press it and you're not gonna get yourself killed by pressing it. And one thing to note is it does have a heal over time portion, so sometimes I did see evokers tending to want to press it inside of their inner flame window. That is a basic overview of how to play Evoker this tier. If there's enough interest, I can do some commentaries on some of the later fights of why you put your CDs where you do it and how you set your stasis depending on what the situation calls for. Other things that I saw talked about a lot at the beginning of the tier in the Evoker Discord, and I don't know if people are still doing this or not, is instead of reversioning those echoes, living flaming them, because you have a slightly higher chance when you living flame your echoes to generate an essence first, I've never seen, I've watched a lot of VODs. I have never seen a evoker in any of the top guilds do this. So I do not recommend you ever do that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was more helpful than confusing, but please leave any comments down below. And if there's anything that is really confusing to everyone, I can make another video. Bye.